The book of John, chapter 7, verse 34. Ye
Uh-huh.
shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come.
Now, this is Christ talking to the brothers and sisters saying, you're going to seek me, but you're not going to be able to find me.
Right.
And where I go, you cannot come. Now, we know what Christ is talking about. We know that we know now what he was talking about. He was talking about, listen, I'm here on earth right now, but in a minute, I'm going to be gone up out of here. You're not going to see me no more. And physically, I'm not going to be here anymore, walking amongst you. But peep what they said when he said that, because they didn't understand what Christ was saying. Go ahead.
Come. Verse 35. Then
Mm-hmm.
said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him?
They said,
We
where is Christ going to go where we're not going to be able to find him? I mean, we can find him anywhere. Where is he going to go where we can't find him in the land of Israel? Go ahead.
will he go unto this so like it will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles
Will
and
he
teach
go
it?
unto the dispersed among the Gentiles? Will he go into those Israelites that are dispersed among the Gentiles and go give them the teaching and the healing and teach them? You see that? They knew that their brothers and sisters that were actual Israelites were living in other lands and they were dispersed. They knew the prophecies back then. They knew that the Lord uh, cut off the northern kingdom and dispersed them into different lands. They knew about the times when the southern kingdom went into captivity, and many of those brothers didn't come back. Many of them came back to Jerusalem, and many of them didn't come back. They went to other lands. And we're talking about this is during the time of Christ. Christ is walking on the earth. What we're reading right now, Christ is literally walking on the earth right now at this time, at this period. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they had knowledge prior that their descendants, their bloodline was dispersed and scattered amongst the Gentiles and other places. We're going to get into where some of them were scattered at. Let me see. Let's get if you
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1.
Mhm.
And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of Persians, like a king of the Persians and the Medes,
Mhm.
and he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
So Alexander in the history, in world history, Alexander was a great warrior and general that subdued the whole known world at that time. The greatest kingdoms on earth, Alexander subdued. Now he subdued Darius, king of the Persians and the Medes. The Medes at this time conquered even Egypt. You understand? And so when you're reading the book of Tobit, you're reading the history of when the Medes were in power over the Israelites, okay? Over the whole world. I'm sorry, Alexander the Great, and let me just pull this slide up real quick. Will you get an image, you get a visual. Alexander the Great was what the white man calls a mulatto, okay? Alexander the Greek. His father was Philip of Macedonia. His mother is documented as being a Greek, Melanolius, right? She was dark skinned. His mother, she was a Greek. His father was Philip of Macedonia. He was an Edomite. Okay, these are real statues of Alexander the Greek. He was what people call. We know it's not no such thing as mixed, but he was mixed. Okay. Alexander the Greek. He was a Edomite. His father was an Edomite. Philip of Macedonia. If you could, where were we at? Okay, keep going.
Come. Verse 2. And made many wars and won many strongholds,
Uh
and
huh.
slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations.
Now this
And
is actually world history, but you're not what the brother is reading right now is not you're not reading world history. This is in the Bible.
right,
You understand? Go ahead.
Come on. And so much that the earth was quiet before him.
The earth
Wherefore,
was quiet before Alexander the Great. So you can drop that, okay? The earth was quiet before Alexander the Great. And what ended up happening was when he went to Jerusalem, the high priest didn't want no parts of what they had heard about Alexander the Greek. They made agreement with Alexander the Greek for the next generation, all boys to be named after him. Alexander. This is in history also. Okay. And so what you see is during the time of Alexander the Great, many Jews moved into Greek lands. Alexander the Great accepted the Israelites. He was, and what you can call, kind to the Israelites. And Israelites moved into Greek lands, paid taxes, became regular citizens. This is a good book right here. This book is called The Jews Amongst the Greeks and Romans. Okay. Let me see if the Jews among the Greeks and Romans. Okay. In this book, it has real records. It has funeral records. It has Jews or Israelites with Greek names. Okay. Many of our people became Greek. They called them Hellenists or Hellenes, right? They were Jews that had spoke the Greek language and practiced the Greek way of life. We're talking about 330 BC, where Jews were living. We're talking about before Christ, 300 years before Christ. Israelites were living in Greek lands, serving Greek gods, following those customs, never even knowing, growing up there, living their whole lives in Greek lands, never even keeping the law, statute, and commandments. They were dispersed. Okay. Not only that, I'm going to read something out of here. Okay. So, like I said before, this is the book, The Jews Among the Greeks and Romans, a Diasporan source book. And I'll be I'm on page 6. Now, this is talking about 70 AD. Now, this is 70 years after Christ's death. 70 AD, we read about in many sources. In Josephus, we read about it. Also in Babylon to Timbuktu, we read about it, okay? It says the aftermath of the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Since the soldiers were by now becoming weary of slaughtering, even though large numbers of survivors were still coming to light, Caesar, Titus, gave orders to kill only those who were armed or offering resistance. The remainder they were taken prisoner. In addition to those specified in their instructions, they liquidated the old and the weak. Those in their prime and potentially useful, they herded into the temple and confined in the court of women. As guard, Caesar set over them one of his freedmen named Fronto, one of his friends. He was too determined the appropriate fate for each person. He executed all the revolutionaries and the brigands. So everybody that was ready to fight, everybody that was radical, they executed. They had laid information against each other. Of the young, he selected the tallest and finest and kept them back for the triumph. The triumph was like a procession, I believe. If you could get that for me, the Roman triumph, I bought. If you could, I believe it was like a procession in front of all the people. Okay. Of the remainder, those over 17, he bound and dispatched to the quarries in Egypt. So he sent those 17-year-olds to the quarries to work, to mine, to cut rock and all of that. Most of them, however, he made over to the provinces for destruction in the theater by the sword or wild beasts. Those under 17 years were sold. This is from Josephus's mouth. So if you were over 17 and you were in prime, they put you in the theater, which you know as being a gladiator in the Colosseum to fight to the death, to fight. This is what happened to Israelites after the Greeks when it became Rome. And this is 70 years after Christ died. What I just gave you was a history of how Israelites even got into those lands 200 to 300 years before Christ was born. And then you have a glimpse of what happened after 70 AD, after the final destruction of Jerusalem. What did they do with the people? Now, these are the people that went to those lands, but you also had Israelites that fled into Africa. Now, with that being said, these are the brothers and sisters who Christ sent the disciples to go to. These are the brothers and sisters that the New Testament is speaking to, that the Apostle Paul is speaking to. That's why the Bible tells you, that's why it uses the term, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There were more Israelites that were living in the Greek lands than were living in Jerusalem. Ain't that something? What I asked for, I bought.
So, like, can you repeat it? The Roman triumph was like what?
The triumph. Yeah, the Roman triumph. Give me that, please. I was saying I believe it's like a festival where they, after winning a battle or conquering a people, they have a procession in public amongst the citizens, the Roman citizens.
Come on, Con. I found one.
You found one? Let me hear it.
This is from Wikipedia. It says the Roman triumph was a civil ceremony and religious rite of ancient Rome, held to
Okay.
publicly celebrate and sanctify the success of a military commander who had led Roman forces to victory in the service of state, or in some historical traditions, one who has successfully completed a foreign war.
So this is exactly what I didn't know the definition of it, but this is exactly what I believed it was. And not only that, to add more to it, it was the triumph of Titus. Remember, Vespasian and Titus, 70 AD, are the Roman generals that came for the last time in the siege of Jerusalem and destroyed the walls and starved the people, cut off the access points, and brothers and sisters starved to the point where our people were eating their shoes, eating their own babies. It was a horrible sight. You understand? And this all came upon our people because we profaned the land that he had gave us. We turned our back on our God. Because you would say, how could that happen? How could the Lord allow that to happen to us? Well, how could the Lord allow slavery to happen to us? How could the Lord allow for a people that is a no people, that are not even a people on the earth with a heritage? How could he allow for them not only to enslave us, but later on treat us in a way like we were less than human beings, and hang us from trees and set us on fire and dismember our bodies for trophies and rape our women and do detestable and horrible things to us? How could that happen to us? You see, times have not changed. These are the same things that are going on today happen to our people for our disobedience as a group of people, as a nation of people. You understand? You talk about Paul. You talk about Paul's reach to the Ephesians, to the Corinthians. You talk about his reach to being in Antioch. Paul is documented being in Antioch. Now I'm gonna show you something that I've brought this out before, that you had the main chief concourse of the city in the Greek in Greek society. You had something called the Agora, and this was the main place where philosophers and thinkers and people, like a marketplace, but also with philosophers, and where everybody would go and they would talk about their religion, and they would profess what they believe in. And the Greeks were big on being philosophers, having philosophy about life, philosophy about this and about that. And so in the Agora, when they dug up the Agora, these are some of the things that they found. And these are from the time that Paul actually walked the earth in the Agora, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Let me get this. So these are the faces when they dig into the earth. These are the faces that they pull out. Okay. These are the faces that were seen in ancient Greece during the time of Paul. You understand? These are the Israelite faces that were seen during the time. And you think that you look at the world and say, well, the Greeks were white people, the Romans were white people, not knowing that these societies were mixed societies with different groups in them, and the Israelites were in all of it. In fact, the Israelites were why you can go as far as saying the Israelites were the reason why these nations were so great, because we were always the bottom class doing the work, doing the small jobs. Now, let me see. I did have a slide for the Agora, what it looked like, what it would have looked like. So this is actually remnants of the Agora. It was where the citizens would assemble. And this is a place where Paul would have went, and the disciples. When you talk about the New Testament, you talk about going to Ephesus, Corinth, these Greek cities, these Greek lands. This is where brothers were going to. They were going to people that actually look like this in Acts, in Romans, in Ephesians, in Corinth. They were going to people that look like this. I pray you understand. But that is also the thing. Our people actually were in these places, okay? And when brothers and sisters read the Bible, when Christians read the Bible, they think that it's talking about everybody. They think that when it says no Jew or no Greek, they actually believe that it's talking about all nations. Well, why is it only using there is no Jew or no Greek? Why is it not using there is no Jew or Moabite? There is no Jew or everybody. There's no Jew or Edomite. There's no Jew or Greek, because our people actually were living as Greeks. When Paul and them hit the scene, our people were actually living as Greeks, worshiping Greek gods, speaking the Greek language. That is the reason why the New Testament was written in Greek. I had to tell you, I had to say this again. There were more Israelites in the Greek lands than in Jerusalem. That's why the Bible was translated not just from the Hebrew, but from the Greek, because the high priests were speaking Greek. The prophets were speaking Greek. Everybody was speaking Greek. That was our tongue. We didn't forget the Hebrew, but the Greek was with everything everybody was speaking in.
When nowadays I work hard on the job till I come cross y'all. Still like I'm a criminal. Trying to get caught, it could be your first charge. Like, man, you ain't getting the minimum. It go dip, squat, 5 mile run, push, pull, sit on, goddamn, get strong. Looking at my baby, trying to keep them doing wrong. It's too long before they grown, I can't leave them on their own. They killed Daddy like he had a 30-day case. The news covering up the story for what they say. It took me back to the time we lost Otis. Pretend these crackers, they gon' tell you something.